Hello and welcome to Tech Deals Gigabytes RX Vega 64 Gaming Overclocked Edition. Yes, April 2018, we are talking about RX Vega again. The price on these cards has been dropping recently. I just picked this card up off of Newegg. Links to Amazon and Newegg down in the video description below. But I bought this card for less than $800, which it hasn't been that price for a long time. Graphics card prices are starting to come down, so if you are interested in a top-end graphics card, now might be time to take another look. Now, why did I buy this card? I already have an RX Vega 64 liquid cooled, yes, but those are more expensive and I bought that last year. This is instead an aftermarket card with the standard traditional open air fans, just like most other third-party cards that you would buy. And I want to see how well this runs compared to the blower cards and the liquid cooled card that I tested in 2017. I also want to see how well the driver updates have done, and there's new games since then, so I'll benchmark those as well, like Assassin's Creed Origins and others. But I want to see how well the drivers have updated, how well the open air cooler works. Should you consider buying an RX Vega now that it's been out for many months? Please note, there are new cards coming sometime later in 2018. We don't have a definite idea. My current guess, based upon the rumors, 6 months, give or take a few months. I don't think we'll see them in early summer, but I could be wrong. But based upon what I've seen so far, I think we might get them sometime in the August, September, October timeframe. Assuming we get them this year at all, it depends upon prices. If they're selling every one of these they can make, they might push that back. But there may be a sequel to the RX Vega and the GTX 1080 Ti. So if you don't need to buy today, maybe wait 6 months. If you can wait 6 months, you might both A, get a lower price, and B, there might be a new generation of cards out. But if you're sick of waiting and you're looking for the prices to come down, take another look at those links down in the description below. See if they've come down far enough for you. Maybe pick up a top-end card if you've got a top-end machine. Now we're going to be testing this card today in my top-end test bench i7 8700K overclocked to 5 gigahertz on all 6 cores, 12 threads, no AVX offset. I have a 280mm liquid cooler on that. And we're using the Asus ROG Strix Z370 motherboard that you can see here. And that is on my test bench. You can see just barely behind me, that's that white thing back there. I'm going to put this card on. I'm going to run some gaming and non-gaming benchmarks. I will compare them to a recent 1080 Ti game performance video and non-game performance video test that I've done. And I'll put those all together on a chart for you in just a minute. But before we get to the benchmark charts, let's open this up and take a look at this beautiful card inside, because I have shown you the blower style cards, but I have not shown you an aftermarket Vega. And inside we have a box that says Gigabyte in very black print that's very hard to see. We'll open that up. And inside the box we have form-fitting foam and an anti-static bag with the card and some adapters. It does come with one adapter. This is a 2 6-pin PCI Express power connector to a single 8-pin. Yeah, if you're buying a graphics card like this, if your power supply doesn't have the right connectors, I would strongly advise replacing your power supply. This thing takes up a lot of power. Recommended 750 watts. It'll run on less, but that's what Gigabyte recommends. At least have a 600, 650 at the very least. But yeah, 750 is not crazy. These things do use a lot of power. Taking it out of the anti-static bag for the first time. Video and pictures do not necessarily do this card justice. Wow, it is thick. Take a look at that. It is a 2.5 thick slot card. It is taller than a standard card as well, so you'll need plenty of Z height and plenty of width in order to handle this. You could not put two of these side by side, nor would you want to due to heat. It does have a very nice back plate on it, and it's got the exposed copper plate there for the actual chip itself. It looks very nice in general. Now this shroud here is in fact plastic, and it does have Gigabyte signature orange accents on it. There are 2 fans, but the card itself is not too long, which is nice. If you do have confined space and you don't want a super long card, it's pretty standard length in terms of the card itself. Do you want connectors? We have connectors. 3 HDMI 2.0 ports and 3 DisplayPort 1.4s. Yes, you can run 6 monitors off of this card. You can run 6 4K monitors off of this card. Now, of course, you're not going to game on that, but if you want a card that will handle a wide variety of activities, if you want something for content creation and you have 6 monitors, well, it's actually not crazy. It will do it. And of course, it'll run any 2 or 3 monitors using AMD's Eyefinity technology if you want to spread the screen across for gaming or simply spread it across your desktop for multiple monitor use. Here you can see two 8-pin PCI Express power connectors, and yes, you're going to need to make sure you're using a good modern power supply. If your power supply is 10 years old, you might want to replace it. It might not be single rail, or maybe it's not making the power you expect. It is a power-hungry card. It is worth noting that it's not a light card either. This has serious heft to it. If your computer does not have some sort of VGA reinforcing, or perhaps it has weak slots, it doesn't have the steel armor slots of a modern motherboard, yeah, you might want to get a support for it because this thing is not light. And now that we have the card out of the box, I'm going to stick it on the test bench, do a bunch of testing, and we'll be back in just a minute with some results. First up, Rise of the Tomb Raider DirectX 12, a game that honestly I expected to do pretty well on the RX Vega, especially with more than 6 months of driver updates. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case. i7-8700K at 5 GHz fixed, no AVX offset, 16 gigs of DDR4, 3200 MHz RAM, CL16, that is Trident Z RAM, it's the good stuff. And yeah, look at these results. 200 FPS average at 1080p versus 150 on the RX Vega 64, 1440p, 154 to 103, and then 83 to 55 at 4K. Now, did I really expect RX Vega to win in all these tests? No, but I expected it to come closer than this, and unfortunately, this is a pretty large deficit considering these cards are only about $100 or so apart in price. Ghost Recon Wildlands is one of the more recent titles in my current test bench series. There will be new games coming up in a week tested on both these cards. I just didn't have them finished for this video. And yeah, this is pretty much a stair step of performance. What this simply shows is that the RX Vega 64 in games like this simply are not as fast as the GTX 1080 Ti. Now, I know some people are going to look at this and say, well, what are you comparing these cards for? They're not in the same class. Well, they are both the flagship cards from each company, and the price is really, really close. A GTX 1070 Ti is, in this game, probably closer in performance to the Vega 64, but it's a lot less expensive. The 1070 Ti coming up next week, I paid $529 on Amazon for, and that's a Gigabyte Aorus card, by the way. That's a factory overclock card as well. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. It's just not competing with where it is currently priced in the market. Rainbow Six Siege is one of the most popular online shooters at the moment, team-based squad action. Now, these cards are overkill for this if you're playing at 1080p. You don't remotely need 308 frames per second. 259 would be fine. But if you want to play at 1440p or 4K, or you want to turn the detail up to ultra rather than high detail, yeah, the same thing applies. Even at 4K, you're looking at 125 versus 97. For sure, the RX Vega is completely playable, but again, yeah, you're getting about 20-25% more performance at 4K for 10 to 15% more money on the 1080 Ti. The Division is not a new game by any stretch, but it's still graphically demanding, it's still beautiful, and Ubisoft recently announced The Division 2 is coming, so I will definitely be covering that. The Division was fun, I beat the game, I have completely played through it, it is a blast. Unfortunately, performance-wise, we have the same problem. Of course, at 1080p, it's fine, but if you look at 1440p, 129 to 93, if you're into high frame rate gaming, that's an issue, and I am running the built-in benchmarks after all. Actual gameplay in the PvP zone, the dark zone in the center of the map, will be worse than this, I can tell you that from experience, and then 73 versus 52 on the 4K average. Now, the minimums are varying depending upon whether we're looking at 1080p, 1440p, or 4K. Notice that we're down at 32 and 33 at 4K, but notice the minimum difference at 1080p and then a slightly smaller difference at 1440p. I'm including those numbers simply for reference. I'm not calling them out on each slide, but yeah, same story. Next up, we have For Honor. Well, same story, different day. What can I say? The 1080 Ti just walks away with it. Look at 1440p, for example, 166 to 109. Now, sure, if you have a 60 Hz 1440p monitor, either of these are fine. But so would a GTX 1070, not even the Ti. The whole point here is if you want to play games on a high refresh rate monitor at 1080p or 1440p, or if you want to play at 4K, look at the 4K results. 85 to 54, that's not even close. That is a noticeable and dramatic performance difference. Look at the minimums. The 1080 Ti maintained over 60 frames per second minimum versus 45 frames per second minimum on the RX Vega 64. If you're going to pay $850-ish for a 1080 Ti versus $750-ish for a Vega 64, If for no other reason, look at that performance difference and do the math. The value for the money is actually in the higher price card here. Next up, we have Far Cry Primal. Not Far Cry 5, but that is coming up in the next video, I promise you. Let me know in the comments below if you still want to see games like Far Cry Primal tested. It's kind of aging out at this point. I don't know if anybody cares anymore. That's what the comments are for. In any case, same story, different game, performance difference, price. Grand Theft Auto 5, still one of the most popular online games at the moment, is an interesting beast. At 1440p and 1080p, it's game engine and CPU limited. The results here do not reflect the card. The only test here that actually reflects the cards are the 4K results. Now, I'm at high detail. To be sure, if I turned everything to ultra, distance sliders to max, you would have seen a larger difference at 1440p, although I don't know that it would have made a huge difference at 1080p. This game, while beautiful and popular, is now older. It's approaching 4 years old, actually a little over 4 years old at this point. So do you want to see Grand Theft Auto 5 tested anymore? Let me know down in the comments. 147 frames per second average versus 91 on the Vega at 4K. Yeah, I think that speaks for itself. Another game I'm not sure that you still want to see tested, Mankind Divided. Another game that's a couple years old. This was tested in DirectX 12 and the same results. Now, it's not quite as far apart here as it was in some of the other games, especially like at 4K. 38 versus 50 is not hugely different. 75 versus 98, okay, that's almost a 25% difference, and these cards are not 25% apart in price, so yeah, I'm sorry to say the 1080 Ti still wins this, even accounting for the price, just due to the performance difference. I'm afraid that quote, fine wine technology, I mean, that's not really a thing, it's just what people say because AMD cards have a history of getting better with months of driver releases. Has it? Well, maybe a little bit, but it certainly hasn't closed the gap, considering what a Vega 64 currently costs in April of 2018. There you have it, a bunch of games tested at 3 different resolutions on both of these cards, and unfortunately the 1080 Ti is still faster. Now, I know that the 1080 Ti costs more, but not much more, at least not in April of 2018 when I'm filming this, and it just doesn't compete. Now, it certainly would be competitive with, say, a GTX 1070 Ti, but those cost closer to $500, and these cost closer to $800, so yeah, there's that. Would I buy one of these today? No, I wouldn't. But what if you had a FreeSync monitor? No. The performance, the thermals, the price, it just doesn't make any sense. If this were a $500 card, yes, I would absolutely consider it. Then I'd compare it to a 1070 Ti or a 1070, and then we'd have a very different conversation. But at $800-ish, yeah, not so much. Now, there's a couple of other things that I need to share with you. I couldn't discuss in the beginning of this video because I had not yet actually used it, but now that I've used it, I had a number of hard locks with this card, and yes, I used Display Driver Uninstaller, I made sure everything was clean, I rebooted between tests. I did get all the testing done, but more times than I could count, I had to hard power off the machine. The reset button did not work. I mean, it completely locked up hard, the fans went to 100%, and the system became unresponsive. I am running the very latest optional drivers, and the machine is very clean. It has a fresh install of the Windows 10 Fall Creator Update. I do a clean reinstall on that test bench every couple of months, so it's not corrupted with a bunch of junk. The thermals, power draw, temperature, noise, and stability of this card are, in my opinion, terrible. Now, when you put it in power saving mode and lower the voltage, it's completely, totally stable and much quieter, and it loses about 10 to 15% of the performance off of the numbers you just saw. Vega is not competitive, I'm sorry to say. It is temped and volted and spun up to a speed to try to compete with the price point it's at, and it doesn't compete performance-wise, and to be completely blunt, it really shouldn't even be running this fast. Turn down 10% in voltage and clock speed, it becomes much quieter, much more reasonable on the power draw, totally stable. But this is factory overclocked. I didn't overclock it. This is the gaming overclock card, and it's not stable out of the box. So I'm very disappointed in that. Now, that's not a knock against Gigabyte itself per se, because I have many other Gigabyte cards I like, but this particular Gigabyte card I have to give a do not recommended to because it was a dreadful experience, and I would not buy one. That I would buy. The 1070 or 1070 Ti version of this I would buy. I did. I have a 1070 Ti version of this coming up soon. That's the one I mentioned. I wouldn't buy these. Now, the RX 580s are very nice, but their performance caliber is way below these, and so really, if you want AMD and you want FreeSync, wait 6 months. The rumors are that Vega 2, codenamed Navi, is coming and hopefully has the same design team that made Ryzen so awesome, because Ryzen is awesome, but this isn't. So I'm hoping that Vega 2 fixes the problems with this and gives us a true competitive landscape, because let's be honest, while I love the 1080 Ti, NVIDIA could use the competition. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with that big huge red button directly below. Questions and comments in the comment section. Let me know which games from this collection you still want to see tested and which I should drop. And then check the links in the video description. Those are affiliate links. They do support the channel. If you found this interesting, helpful, or useful, please use those links when shopping. It does make a difference. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.